So we've been talking about kind of the love-hate relationship we have with our own profession
hmm
and being part of a, 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 a profession and having been steeped in it for so many years, we definitely are, I think, poised and I think we have the right in a sense to be able to criticize it and to
hmm
be savvy as we consider the benefits. And Tim was just reminding us of a term that, everyone knows how we feel about big pharma around here, but big therapy is also a thing. And Elliott, I love your heart and your some of your formative years as a therapist were in crisis, which
hmm
is how you're wired to handle crisis, which is wonderful because a lot of people we talk about the flight or fight or freeze or fawn, and you get in there and fight would be, I
I have the
think, the
fifth F,
word we'd use.
focus. Focus is
Focus.
right. Yeah, focus
And
brings better focus. Yeah.
you get focused in a crisis where other people can freeze or just freak out. There's another F. But I think that it's also the crisis model is get in, let's do something, let's get out. And I do think, and I will take issue with some folks in big therapy, and it probably stems from Freud and the psychoanalytic model where one will have an analyst. And if you're a lot of people in Manhattan will have their analyst and
hmm
they'll just assume they're going to see this person for years and years. Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karin Anderson Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliott Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
And biblical truth.
to help us thrive in love and life. And I wonder what you think about maybe some therapists being okay with creating a bit of a codependent so that they can feel needed and they can
Yeah.
feel that
I
they're
mean,
doing something.
I think most of my friends, and I have a lot of friends who are therapists still, I think most of them do not do that consciously
Mm-hmm.
or directly on purpose ever. But I think unconsciously that happens. I think we get kind of stuck in, even if we're helping someone get unstuck, we get stuck in that relationship with a client. And whether we
Mm-hmm.
ever call them friend or not, it becomes friendship. It becomes a
Mm-hmm.
depth of relational connection that is pretty significant. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've always been out of the box in this realm, partially with my ADHD, partly just who I am as a crisis person, my desire for holism and holistic measures over pure therapeutic movements. Right. I got out of my initial crisis work because I didn't feel it was holistic enough, even though crisis counseling is way more holistic than most counseling, because I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to do more expansive emotional relational connection with these wild young men I was working with. And that's why dorm life and student development life in the university for the next 14 years was a really solid use of my therapeutic skills, my administrative ability, and the context and the weaving of the two. So I don't think it's on purpose. And I can flip too much on the other side, Karin, and like become bored with my clients, which
Well,
is
that's
not healthy
nice.
either. Yeah, that's not
Way to
healthy.
go.
Right. And some people, like if I see someone every week for 9 months or something, and it's very effective and healthy and appropriate. So it's nothing wrong. It's just me. It's just my style, my personality. I'm like, man, I hope I'm not holding them back, right? By feeling they need to come see me. Right. So I just usually bring that up. How are we doing? Let's talk through it a little bit. Do we need to go every other week now? Just trying to naturally wean a little bit and separate a little bit so people don't accidentally get dependent on us.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, other professions, there's similarity things. Like I see my massage therapist fairly regularly. I'm not dependent on her, but it sure feels good. And so now that I'm in a stage of life that I have a little more liquid cash available with everyone through college, I'm more regular with her than I used to be. And so I think there's elements here that are healthy, elements that are we need to be aware about. But occasionally, I think big therapy creates something unintended, at least I hope so, that does foster codependency and this methodology of you are likely going to be my client for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think it also, as you're talking, what was coming to mind for me was, I think, even broader than big therapy, but certainly related. Big therapy is one prong of this wheel, is this mental health awareness. And I take issue with that entire campaign, which I think there's an entire month in May, I think, is mental health awareness. Because when we're always having people be aware of your mental health issues, first of all, like, for example, I remember when I was teaching at Concordia, at the student union, one time I went down there for whatever I was going down there for. And there's this mental health awareness, like, fair with all these booths set up, and they're going to do a free depression screening. And I'm like, well, who's paying for that? Who's funding that depression screening?
Mm-hmm.
Might it be Eli Lilly? So that they can, oh, wow, you've been feeling bad for the last couple weeks. Let's put you on Prozac. Never mind that the fact that you're feeling bad is you just gotten broken up with from your boyfriend of 2 years. We don't have that information. We didn't get that from the screening, but what we did get is that you're not feeling great and we've got a pill
Yeah,
for you.
sure.
So this whole mental health awareness, I think sometimes causes people to be so of course I'm a psychologist. I want people to be in touch with their feelings, but if it's to the point where you're navel gazing all day long and for every minor fluctuation of your emotional state, you're thinking, well, do I have this, that, and the other? I think that I really take issue with it. I don't think that that's the best use of our time. I don't think I think it can foster this dependency on therapy and always being so concerned with mental health. And I need a mental health day. And
It's a lot. It's a very fine line between these barometers you're talking about. When I was in charge and directing the wellness center at Judson, we had mental health fairs too. They weren't sponsored by any big pharma or any big drug companies or
was it
local
not?
hospitals. I wish it was. I could have used some free gear, but no, it was not.
Well, who put it together?
I did. I ran it. But the idea wasn't to diagnose someone on the fly or get them to come into the wellness center. It was really just trying to catch a few of those folks who never would walk in our doors and who go to the cafeteria every day, and catch a few who there's maybe some really profound grief going on or profound sadness, pain, anxiety, panic attacks. And then we could just kind of have some type of opportunity to teach them, help them be aware. Same thing with our groups, right? Just announcing groups, and that there was an anxiety group and there was an eating disorder group and there was a sexual addiction group that we started, and just trying to help people understand them. But in those groups, for example, there were set times. It wasn't like, oh, from now till the end of your graduation, you will be in this group, but rather here's a 6-week group to try to really work on these things intentionally for growth and change, not just commonality of let's come be stuck in our woes together, but let's talk about how do we rise up? How do we get healthier? How do we get more whole? Because it really becomes a massive part of our identity. And I think that's partly what you're talking about, that we can be so fixated on our mental health, positive or negative, that becomes like the leading aspect of our identity. And our lens then for life becomes through our anxiety or through our depression, rather than through our academics or through our sport or through our music or through the Lord, through who we are as a person, right? It gets convoluted. And I think that's what you're talking about as well.
And I think it assumes fragility, assumes weakness, assumes that we won't be able to persevere. We know the research, and I want to do a lot, just for my class this fall, I want to do a little bit more on resilience, because we know that there are kids who have that grit. I know that there's a researcher, I think Angela Duckworth, who's been doing a lot of research on grit. And we know that so much of life is not even how many gifts you were given, your talents, not how smart you are. It's really, do you persevere? And sometimes you're gonna have to persevere through really uncomfortable emotions. And I think just giving yourself a pass and I'm gonna take a mental health day and I'm gonna stay home and cry in my beer. I don't think that that's the best message, but I think big therapy sends that message sometimes. Self-love, self-care. But what's going to make me love myself more is when I set a goal and reach it. And that's going to mean persevering through some rough emotions at times. And that's going to, the end goal that we want through therapy or through just life is to get that good feeling, that self-esteem, but we really can't get it if we're just always giving ourselves a pass, or like you said, oh, I can't do that because of my anxiety, and giving ourselves excuses. I understand that impulse. I mean, of course, I've had times where I'm like, I'm just going to stay home and cry. But I think I feel better. So pushing through that discomfort and staying on task and staying on goal, I end up feeling better in the long run when I do that. And I think that's missing from the equation in general.
Yeah, in touch with the emotion, even releasing the emotion, and then moving through and with the emotion.
Right.
Karin, I'm sure you remember my crisis counseling lectures, because you used to bring me down to Chicago State to give it each year. And so I know you have all the points memorized, but one of the, is because it's only been about 20 years since you've heard it. But one of the last point of the 4, I believe, from the lecture, because I've given it many, many times, is empathy with direction. I think that's the dichotomy, right? So empathy, yes, people are going through hard times and we don't want to be trite about it when someone comes in devastated because their boyfriend of 3 years broke up with them. And just like, okay, that's sad, but let's go. Let's get in there. Right? You can't do it that quickly.
No.
So a lot of empathy about the loss, the sadness, the grief, but then slowly and surely moving it fairly closely. I wouldn't want to meet with that young person 3 times to talk about the sadness. One full session, all about the sadness and loss, totally appropriate. But by the second one, it's going to be 50-50. And by the third one, I'm going to be moving. Let's see how we're growing through this, how we're responding through this, and not get stuck thinking your whole lens still through that pain, through that. And it is painful, but your whole lens of life through that now, you're seeing everything. And this is what he's doing. I see him here. He's doing this, and I'm tracking him on. It's just very unhealthy, and it'll get you stuck. It'll get you identifying with the pain, even legitimate pain, as your primary. And you can lose months of your life focused on something that's not going to help you at all. So yes, I think therapeutic stuff does that a lot, accidentally, incidentally.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I started having trouble falling asleep. And I started taking melatonin because I thought it was a natural way to try to relax myself, calm myself down, and go to sleep. But it turns out that as a hormone supplement, melatonin can disrupt our other hormones and we can build up an immunity to it. So when we started partnering with the wellness company, I was super excited to try their melatonin-free sleep aid called Restful Sleep. It includes passion flower, chamomile, valerian root, among other herbs, and natural ways to help calm us down and get us ready to go to bed. I've been using it for a couple months now, and Restful Sleep helps my mind and body quiet themselves and ease into sleep. If you've ever had insomnia, you know how brutal it is. The wellness company's Restful Sleep can help. Head over to twc.health/lovelife and enter promo code LOVELIFE at checkout for 15% off your entire order. That's twc.health/lovelife and promo code LOVELIFE for 15% off your entire order.
And again, for those who aren't as aware of all the different orientations, there are certainly more active approaches in therapy. And like we were making the contrast between a crisis modality versus a psychoanalytic, and certainly CBT, cognitive approaches are much more directive. Solutions focused. I mean, you're going in there. What's the solution? We're not even, and strengths based. So it's always reinforcing. Let's remember, you do have the ability to get through this. You have before, you will again, and that sort of thing. But it reminds me of ACT 2, acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a third generation cognitive therapeutic orientation, which we've had Dr. Stephen C. Hayes twice on the program. And when you said moving, empathy with movement,
direction.
Is that what you said? Direction. He talks about moving through. So even in the midst of acknowledging, noticing, oh, hi, sadness, there you are again, but moving through those deep emotions and a bit of diffusion he talks about, so that we're not fused and taking on the identity of that emotion. That just, and a detachment almost. And he has his clients visualize. He talked about this on the program with us. He said that you imagine like you're looking at a brook or a stream, and you see leaves that have fallen from the trees, and they're just going down the stream, and you go, there's my sadness, and just watch it, notice it. Okay. It's kind of Zen. So it's not something that I was real familiar with as far as something that we had been trained in through mom and dad's instruction of how to live. It was a little bit more hippy dippy, I think, than what we were raised with, but I liked it. I thought it was a useful tool sometimes to be like, I can notice that emotion and then still do what I got to do today. I don't have to be like, I am so sad and so depressed. It's like, I feel this. I notice it. Hi. Okay. You're there. Also, for now, I'm going to go do this. Not denying it, not stuffing it, but just being able to have the tension of both, being able to still move, act, be directive, and also be noticing the legitimate emotion that I'm feeling.
Yeah. In my intro to counseling class, first one yesterday, I was talking to them about the importance of figuring out who you are as a person and who you are as a therapist, and also being adaptable to the client at the exact same time. So I'm always going to have empathy with direction. I'm always going to have the passion of Jesus and the passion of being a change agent. But if someone comes in and they're in the worship arts or the artistic side and they're talking in images and symbolism, I'm going right there with them. So someone comes in and starts talking about the brook and the water, I'm going to go right there with them. If I have my architects or the accountants on campus in my office, total left brains, they're going to talk structure and order and right, this is out of place. You'll hear a lot of that kind of language. And then I'm going to go right there with them. Right. So I'm still going to have empathy with direction, but I'm going to match or adapt to the language and the lens and the sensory of the clients. And I think that's a very effective way. Our listeners would probably like to hear, and we just told Tim this as well, that Karin and I are both teaching on Monday nights this semester right next to each other. So there is rooms right next, and we've already been talking, and we're going to get a couple, at least 2, I hope, joint classes, whether the whole thing's joint or just partially, because Karin teaches a lot longer than I do. But we'll have them joint together in some capacity and get those broadcast and allow those to be part of a show episode as well. We're talking about the attachment things. We're talking about some of the love romance stuff. You threw something else yesterday out, another idea. And I
ADHD. I want you to come and talk because no, but also so you do something that you say my ADHD, you talk about it, but so it's part of who you are. I would even say it's part of your identity, but it's not debilitating. And so I see a distinction just because I know, right. You're like, this is actually a strength, but so often people, as we've talked about extensively and even touched on today, so often people take on an identity of a mental health issue or a psychiatric illness, and that becomes a limiting force in their life. Whereas the way you speak to it, and I actually want to highlight that because I think when people listen and you're like my ADHD, and then they're like, well, Karin and Elliott say you're not supposed to identify with your weaknesses. You're saying, no. In my case, it's actually his strength, and I own it. I'm cool with it. Everyone needs to know that's how I roll. But yeah, so I want you to come and talk about that when we're going to lay into Ritalin and Adderall and all that.
Yeah.
But I do want you to talk about, is it possible especially because, we've got parents and we've got, in my class, I've got one woman with 6 kids and one who's got a bun in the oven. So these mothers are hearing this. They're getting these labels tossed around, and they're getting teachers saying, well, we need to have him, her assessed for this, that, and the other. So for you to be able to say, okay, you might hear that, and they may be onto something. It may be accurate to a degree, but how can we flip that to make it a strength?
Yeah, all of our testing and our analysis and our assessments are stronger and stronger than they every year, and certainly more than when we were little as kids. But at the same time, that brings so much quicker identification. And if it's not framed in a way of positivity and understanding and adaptability and actually a joy even, then it's going to have problems. So I was in my morning workout today, I was talking with our basketball coach at Judson, who I had coached when he played at Judson. And so we have a long relationship together. And we were talking a little bit about this kind of modality, about players come in, and he's got a huge new recruiting class, and they're a little bit afraid to know what to do, how to do, when to do. And they're just trying to understand their limitations within the reality of the teammates. And so he and I were brainstorming a little bit. He'll have me come in and talk to the team many times. And so, for example, this wasn't done for me or with me, but it was just the way my mind thought, even at 18 years old. So when I was being recruited by our coach, and he said, you might have an opportunity to get some playing time your freshman year. And I looked him dead in the eyes, a cocky 17-year-old, and said, no, if I'm coming, I'm starting. And I did. That was my mentality. But I still realized the jump from high school to college is huge, even small schools, right? And so coming in then, I'm like, wow, my 5'8" height in high school, it was frustrating occasionally, but not the same in college when everyone's 6'2" to 6'9", right? And so I could look at that height and say, oh, this is a limitation? Or is this actually a strength, an opportunity? How do I use my height? I'm not a good jumper, right? I had not a strong vertical jump at all, but I'm extremely quick. How do I not focus on that I'm not tall and that I can't jump, and make that say, well, that's why I'm probably not going to have as good of a career as I want? But rather say, no, I'm very sneaky with my height, and I'm very quick, and I'm going to use my height to my advantage. So it's actually a blessing rather than a curse. And yes, I know I'm not being naive. 5'8" in basketball is not great. It doesn't help you that often, but there's ways in life then to do the same type of thing. So I have this attention issue or this hyper focus and distraction issue. I can make that a curse in my life and the excuse for why I can never get what I want to get or never finish things. Or I can train my mind, body, and heart and spirit to make that actually advantageous. And as we've said before, when we talked about ADHD on the show, Dad's training of me in that was humongously important because he had it and had learned how to walk through it. He had whatever element of it was there. Very structured, very organized by nature, but the man had some serious energy. In fact, Mom still has amazing energy at almost 90 years old. Texted me this morning that she'd been climbing on the couch to look at the hummingbirds better or something and felt a little strain in her leg. So I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? So it's just funny. But that's the modality, that energy, that movement. And so to recognize both sides, right? So was ADHD, I'm not trying to be naive, was ADHD beneficial for me in the academic setting, kindergarten through 10th grade? No, it wasn't. Systemically, that made it much more difficult. The rest of life, was it advantageous? 1000%. So how do we weigh that out? How do we walk through that in ways to know how to use that moving forward rather than therapeutically saying, oh, this is my mental health issue for life that's likely going to stop you from being your best self or your full self. And then you probably need to talk to someone about that regularly for the next 37 years.
Right. Or beyond a stimulant.
Adrenaline or Ritalin or be a coffee junkie or whatever it would be to get that stimulation.
Yeah. So this makes me think of also cultural realities and societal changes. So you were talking about when you were little and when we were little in the 70s. There's research now, and I can't put my finger on it, so I don't have a link to share in the show notes, but I will find one because, again, it's related to stuff I'm teaching this fall. But because of social media and scrolling in particular, and because TikTok and all these reels are quick, like 5 seconds and you're on to the next, there's research that's looking at everyone's attention span is diminishing. So you could be like, oh, I have ADHD. Well, so does everyone else at this point. Like,
I know, because you're training the brain to be so fastly operating and orchestrating and moving and needing that constant stimulation, which is always a focal point of ADHD. And you and I were talking about our students, like they have 1 second downtime, the phone's out, like almost like Pavlov's dogs. I mean, it is out in a millisecond.
Yep.
And our psych department has a no technology in the classroom policy, which you and I absolutely adore. Our department chair, Dr. Daniela, created that and put that into place. And it's fantastic. But it's like kids, students are struggling. They struggle with that. They're not bickering or arguing or fighting us about it, but it's just, they're so used to it, the habitual nature of it. And I think it was on the messages we broadcast that the research about any scrolling at all for any reason between like 11 and 3 a.m., 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. is like an automatic depression builder and changes your brain structure. They got that narrowed down and what happens when we can't sleep? And insomnia is a big impact of the scrolling and this nonstop stimulation. And then we do more and more and more, and we're more and more depressed. And it's like, it always makes me laugh about alcohol. You know, I'm not a drinker, never have been. I mean, not even any. And it just makes me laugh that when people are depressed, they always want to go drink. I'm like, alcohol's a depressant, right? All you're doing is creating another layer of depression on top of your depression. And you get like a 60-minute, 80-minute window sometimes of like a little bit of euphoria and numbing. And then it's going to completely go the opposite way. They don't hide the fact it's a depressant. It does not help you feel happier and more positive in the long run. It might help for 20 minutes, half hour, but same kind of thing. And so for us who have that energy systemic, well, it's just like any of my friends who smoke. They all know smoking's not good for you, right? It's not, and none of my friends are like, oh, these cigarettes are really actually quite positive. They're quite good for you. Weed smokers will try that, right? But the cigarette folks don't. But it's really hard. The nicotine and the other elements of the brain that can get adapted and regulated to that kind of stimulation is difficult to wean or to break or to stop. And I think the same thing's true about our thinking. And I think the same thing is true about counseling. If we tell ourselves, I have to have this. I have to
Mhm.
talk to this therapist every single week, or I just can't function. You're creating a modality in your brain that's going to believe it, right? Our thoughts literally create our reality.
And that's why, as a man thinketh, so
So he
he,
is.
what is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, in a sense, I like a coaching
Hmm.
model better than a therapy. Although I know that coaches don't go through the same training. I'm not saying coaches can't be effective. In fact, I think for many issues, you've got people who have just basic. I mean, I think most people in therapy have just basic life challenges
Hmm.
that they want to talk through and work through.
Yeah.
And they probably don't need someone who's got a master's degree. Really, a coach would be fine. And I like coaching because I think it's less stigmatizing in the sense that I don't care really about a stigma per se. Like I think most people are pretty like, oh, I see a therapist. No one cares anymore the way they
Hmm.
maybe used to. But in the sense that you don't then step into these labels like we've been talking about or start owning your diagnosis, quote unquote. But at the same time, I'm thinking of just a segue a little bit, but it's related. So now we have big therapy. We've got people who it's becoming just so commonplace that it's like going to the dentist, like, of course, my therapist.
Hmm.
And so again, this continuation, perhaps dependency. And now we've got AI therapists.
Hmm.
Have you heard of this?
Yes, I have.
And there's research that shows that if you look at certain outcomes, that the AI therapist is just as effective
Or maybe more
as
so.
a human. And and well, yes, depending again on the measure, the outcome measure, what we're looking at. I would like to know what that is exactly, how we're operationalizing sadness or
Yeah.
whatever, the decrease in sadness, for example, with an AI therapist. But here's my caution to anyone who would go down that road. I want people to get help if they need help, but I don't know who programmed that AI. I don't know how, like we've been talking about throughout today's episode, there's orientations, there's different philosophies about how to help someone in the therapeutic realm. And I don't trust some, I don't know how to describe AI, but zeros and ones, basically, if you're looking at how the programming, it gets down to the essence of zeros and ones. And that entity, whatever it is going to be replacing a human. And I don't trust who programmed them. Some dude out in San Francisco, like, what's their philosophy? And then I guess AI takes all the input it gets when people use it, and that becomes part of the algorithm. So, what do you think about that in
Yeah, I
20
mean,
years?
I don't know much about it because I'm not very good with tech. But one of my
Right.
other psych professors, Dr. Solomon Wong, is a bit of
Yeah.
an AI expert and is starting to even go out beyond Judson to do some teaching and movements on that. And he's found a lot of benefits in the measures of feeding the AI what you really need. So you could say, AI, give me cognitive behavioral Beck styled information about these particular issues, right? The better information you give it, the better it gets received. But again, if you don't know that, or if you're just being generic and just kind of, I need help with this, who knows what's coming? But if you feed it really good information, it'll feed it back pretty strongly. And again, it's a little risky, obviously, but it's going to happen. It's going to be a part of the
Well, yeah.
modality here for sure.
Oh, it's happening. But the average person who didn't go to get a
Not going to know
counseling
what to say.
degree,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't know. Like they wouldn't know, hey, I think I need a therapist. I've got this AI, it's free or whatever. And they would personally want a more directive CBT approach. But if they've never heard that term, and why would they, unless they listen to a podcast like this,
Yeah.
or they wouldn't know what to feed it.
Yeah. And so
So
we should probably, you and I
it's
both on our own,
scary.
go after it a little bit and see what happens. Put some stuff in and
Mm-mm.
see what it looks like.
I'm not dealing with it.
So I can talk a lot more honestly about it because
Yeah.
I'd be nervous about someone typing in, should I kill myself? And seeing what the response is. And so if it's not based on the value of life, rather just the value of making your own decision, that could be pretty frightening information that comes back. And there's a lot of 10 to 20-year-olds that would likely type something like that into their
Mm-hmm.
their
Mhm.
ChatGPT or whatever it would be.
Or
So,
talking to it. I don't even know how these things work. It's
yeah,
just, yeah.
it's probably good. Are you really you? Or are you an AI representative you right now? I'm not sure which it is.
You have to ask for a code word, I would imagine.
Oh,
Ask me something that the bot wouldn't know or the AI wouldn't know. Like the name of our first cat.
yeah. Did you ever slap your brother in the face in the middle of a family game?
Yes.
Was it deserved? Yes, it
Yes.
was. It was deserved. Listeners are like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, there's a lot of funny stories back in those days." But
Mhm. But that wasn't even in childhood.
no,
That
that
was
was
in
actually
college.
early adulthood. Yeah.
Anyway, all
Yeah.
right.
So I think the context of what we're talking about is important. That as hard as we are about big business, big government, big pharma, big anything, we got to be aware of big therapy, even though we're in it,
Mhm.
and contextually be wise, discerning. And I think you and I are both in favor of not accidentally or incidentally, or certainly not intentionally, creating codependent clients simply to pay our bills or to meet quotas or get the insurance company what they need, as far as prescriptions and everything. It's just, it's sensitive material. People's lives are in the balance.
Mhm. Yeah. And if you end up thinking you always, always, always need a therapist, I think you get to the point where it's pretty disempowering.
And
And it also, just a final thought on that, it also could pull you away from leaning on Jesus. That's the
that's
other
exactly where I
piece.
was going. That's where I was going.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. That we
So
really
yeah,
want only to say that
yeah,
about the Lord, not about anybody else.
here we go. All right. So just some thoughts on big therapy.
That's
Thank you for
right.
sharing.
I will
All
pray
right.
for us.
Thanks.
Lord, thank you for the gift of counseling. That is part of your word and part of your spirit, part of your truth. And for majority of this world's existence, no matter how long it's been around, Lord, there wasn't professional counselors, and we're certainly not against it. We both trained to be it, but we want to be wise and discerning and not create codependency and not accidentally make our clients feel as if they have to talk to us. They need us in order to survive or to grow. That we can have empathy with direction. We can have understanding and rapport, and use our training, our strategies, our background, our experience to help people depend on you if they're of the faith inclination, to be interdependent with resources, support groups, and people around them, and to grow and change and do the hard work to become a better person, to live through the challenges of humanity and death and loss and wellness. And so we thank you, Lord, for this time to discuss this, and pray it's been a blessing to others. In your name, Jesus, amen.
Love and Life with Dr. Karin and Pastor Elliott is produced by Tim May and executive producer Dr. Karin Anderson-Abel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.